Hey guys, and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today we'll be looking at not only the history of the Haradrim, but also attempting to answer the question: why did they ally themselves with Sauron? Why did they turn to evil? What was in it for them? Let's find out.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
So the Haradrim were a very proud race of people from an area in the south of Middle-earth called Harad. They were ancient enemies of Gondor, and during the War of the Ring they allied with Sauron. But why? Is it because their lands were fairly close to Mordor? Well, that of course can't be the case, because by that logic, Gondor would also have allied with Sauron. To discover the answer to this question, we must look back through the ages, to before Sauron. So the ancestors of the Haradrim were the men that awoke in the First Age, but they stayed in the east and did not join in the migration of the Edain to the west. These men went on to settle in Harad, where there were no clouds and the sun was said to be fierce. In the Second Age, Sauron managed to escape the judgment of the Valar and continued his work of his former master, Melkor, ensuring that the men of the east and south followed Melkor's teachings. Under the authority of their Dark Lord, many towns and walls of stone were built, and those that were under his influence became great in number and were armed with weapons of iron. To these men, Sauron was now feared as not only a king, but a god. It was also during the Second Age that Númenor began to set themselves up as lords in Middle-earth and demanded tributes in goods and wealth from other lands, causing the oppression of the Haradrim. Under the leadership of Ellyson, the Númenorians made war on the other men of Middle-earth, often enslaving the Haradrim and using them for human sacrifices. This is possibly something I think will be touched upon in the Rings of Power TV show. Of course, there were rumours of nudity within the show, and I think it will be a really dark element of the show, showing the fact that the Númenorians were making human sacrifices to their god. Anyway, after the downfall of Númenor, some evil high men from Númenor, also known as Black Númenorians, remained in Harad and rose to great power and influence there. This made it very easy to force a rivalry of sorts between Harad and Gondor. Gondor's southern borders were very close to their lands, so there were often battles and disputes between them, and over time, the hatred just grew naturally, making it all the more simple for Sauron to convince them to aid him in his war. But these are not the main reasons. The real reasons go even deeper, and as I said, likely start long before Sauron's time. When men first awoke, Eru spoke to them, speaking to them of their purpose, telling them that they would inherit the earth, but first they must learn of all things. They were impatient and called upon Eru often. He would answer, but not with a direct answer for them. First seek to find the answer for yourselves, for you will have joy in the finding, and so grow from childhood and become wise. Do not seek to leave childhood before your time. Growing increasingly frustrated by Eru's not-to-the-point answers, they began attempting to speak to him less and less. This is then where Melkor steps in. Appearing to them in their own form, but greater and more beautiful, he promised them knowledge and delicious foods, so they took him as a teacher. The corruption of men under Melkor is detailed here. Then we took him as a teacher. He was less swift than we had hoped to teach us how to find, or to make for ourselves, the things that we desired, though he had awakened many desires in our hearts. But if any doubted or were impatient, he would bring and set before us all that we wished for. I am the giver of gifts, he said, and the gifts shall never fail as long as you trust me. Therefore we revered him, and we were enthralled by him, and we depended upon his gifts, fearing to return to life without them that now seemed poor and hard. And we believed all that he taught, for we were eager to know about the world and its being, about the beasts and the birds and the plants that grew in the earth, about our own making, and about the lights of heaven and the countless stars, and the dark in which they were set. All that he taught seemed good, for he had great knowledge, but ever more and more he would speak of the dark. Greatest of all is the dark, he said, for it has no bounds. So Melkor did grant his followers some favours, but only to those who were strong, and pretty much just cruel, and to those that worshipped him most often. They were the ones that he granted gifts to and shared knowledge with. They are the ones that went on to become lords amongst men. By the time many of these people had realised that they had been deceived by a cruel and evil master, they were too fearful of disobeying him, because they knew of his power. The ancestors of the Edain were those who fled and rejected Melkor, but others stayed. They ruled with fear, and Melkor was their god. This then brings us to Sauron after the fall of Melkor. He assumed a position as a representative of the original Dark Lord, before claiming to be Melkor himself returned. The servants who had been corrupted by Melkor would welcome Sauron with open arms, as their new godlike king. But did they know he was evil? Most likely. But over thousands of years and generations of people that were born into a life where worshipping Melkor and Sauron was natural, they would probably not even know of places in the world where this was not the case. They would be continued to be fed lies about their enemies to the west. Those who were clearly aware of the unnatural and immoral actions of their lord would be far too scared to do anything about it. He was too powerful and had so much authority and influence that no one would dare oppose him. Sauron didn't need to try and convince the Haradrim to serve him in the War of the Ring. He merely had to tell them what his orders were and they would be carried out, thanks to the earlier efforts of the original Dark Lord Melkor. Okay, I hope that all that made sense to you guys and gave you a satisfying answer to the question of the video. My question for you guys today is this. If the Haradrim had not originally served Melkor, do you think that Sauron would have been able to win their allegiance? And if he didn't, what sort of impact would that have had on the war and Middle-earth as a whole? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Before we go, I would of course like to thank all of our amazing patrons, and an extra special shout out goes to the members of our highest tiers: Kevin, Abram, Matt, Nashith, Denver Steele, Gregory, John and Andrew. We cannot put into words how much we appreciate you guys. That's it from me today, my friends. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to check out some of our other channels. We of course have the Tabletop Alliance, which has been inactive as of late, but for those of you that have been asking, we are planning on getting some more battle reports out to you, but we're probably not going to do them live anymore because, rightly so, many of you guys complain about the decrease in quality of the video when doing it live, and we absolutely agree. So we are going to spend some time doing it properly, and we'll probably get some videos out to you within the next month or two. Of course, we then have the Batcave for Batman content. The Batman comes out this week, so hopefully you guys are interested in checking that one out. The content is very similar to what we do here, but based 100% around Batman and DC characters. If you're interested, check it out and consider subscribing. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, of course. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.